Birmingham, a city located in the West Midlands of England and has heritage in abundance. History pours out of the labelled Second City, home to Aston Villa and Birmingham City Football Club, chocolate-making giants Cadbury, industry-changing black band Black Sabbath, the largest city-based shopping centre in the United Kingdom, and the birthplace of the world-famous gang, the Peaky Blinders. Yes, the Peaky Blinders are more than just characters in a TV series. They're figureheads for gang culture in the United Kingdom, and more specifically, Birmingham. However, the Peaky Blinders are only a small fraction of the subject. Gangs were, and still are, all over the West Midlands, and this documentary takes you through the culture of gangs in Birmingham, how the police tackled it in the past, how we deal with it in the present, and stories of local charities campaigning against gang violence in the area. I'm Alex Keeley, and I'm taking you through the evolution of Birmingham, Birmingham's heritage, gang violence to charitable change. Handsworth is an inner city of Birmingham, home to one of their most violent gangs, the Burger Bar Boys. They got their name off a fast food establishment and showed what gang culture is all about: territory. Their emergence came in the late 20th century and carved out a niche of urban gang culture in Birmingham. Their infamous rivalry with other gangs like the Johnson Crew left havoc on the streets of the Second City. The Burgers took territory of Smethwick and Handsworth, whereas the Johnnies took territory of Aston and Lozells. Both gangs were heavily involved in local drug dealings, robberies and kidnappings as they rose and increased their sizes. The gangs then became even more violent, with shootings taking place outside of nightclubs and community centres, fighting off yardie gangsters. It was said their methods were similar to Jamaican gangs, with a cold-blooded disinterest in life and strong use of guns and violence. Witnesses were afraid to come out against the gangs, in fear of losing their lives and anybody close to them. As the gangs' influences grew, so did the crimes they were committing, wreaking havoc all over the area. In 1999, Corey Wynne Allens was shot outside of a community centre on Handsworth Road in an unsolved murder. Corey had links with both the Johnnies and the Burgers, but his family claimed he was trying to call a truce between the two gangs and stop the killings. He was surrounded by gang members like a pack of wolves and shot with his own shotgun and handgun. There were dozens of witnesses, all horrified at the scene, and terror contaminated the West Midlands. Now, the Burger Bar Boys and the Johnson Crew were untouchable at this point. Arrests would be made, but the cases would always crumble. More shootings occurred, and the gang rivalries kept intensifying. Johan Martin, known as 13 because of his prison cell number, was a key member of the Burgers. In December 2002, he was shot on the streets of West Bromwich. Nathan Martin, known as 23 for the same reason as Johan, believed that the Johnson Crew killed his brother, and this fired up the rivalry even further. On the 31st of December, Nathan and some friends purchased a red Ford Mondeo with intentions of avenging Johan. In the early hours of January 2nd, 2003, they drove to a hair salon where a New Year's party was being held. They opened fire with a MAC-10 on innocent partygoers, killing Charlene Ellis, Letitia Shakespeare, and injuring two others. The bullets were meant for Johnson Crew members, but the two women being tragically murdered sent shockwaves across the local area. It also gave the gang international eyes, which caused them to move further underground. The murders were a catalyst for how the police chose to tackle gang crime. They went for more intelligence-led approaches and a high focus on prevention. After 4 men were jailed in relation to the New Year's shooting, and Birmingham Crown Court issued injunctions against a further 18 men in 2016, the public reign of the Burger Bar Boys and the Johnson Crew was said to come to an end. Despite police efforts, however, gang culture is still present on the streets of Birmingham today. To find out what the gang scene is really like in Birmingham, I spoke to retired officer Brian Carmichael, who gave us an insight into organised crime groups, otherwise known as OCGs.
Good afternoon, my name is Brian Carmichael. In 1987, I made the decision and was really grateful that I was successful in joining West Midlands Police. So the first thing to establish, to point out, is that gangs have been in existence for over 200 years in Birmingham. So they've always been there. And the gang culture has evolved and adapted, but the fundamental principles of OCGs has not changed. A gang is similar as a business. It has the main principles is to survive. And in order to do that, if you look at a business to be successful, it's got to produce a product, it's got to have a customer base, it's got to have some employees, and it's then got to continue that chain, keep a good customer base, and keep supplying what they want Well, whenever you have poverty, wherever you have a lack of education, wherever you have some form of dysfunction in the family, whether that be domestic abuse, addiction, mental illnesses, you will always find those people are very easy to exploit and to influence into joining a gang, especially if they're seen as an outsider, especially if they're seen as the society is not supporting them, is not looking after them. And this is what an OCG can provide. So it provides protection from other gangs or from other people. It gives their members notoriety, respect. It gives them the basics: food, shelter, money. It gives them opportunity to elevate themselves. It gives them a sense of belonging, because they share an interest, they share this camaraderie, this kinship with these other people whose society have said, you're not going to do very well. But then all of a sudden they have the cash, they have the notoriety, they have the respect, they have the luxuries, the cars, the clothing, the jewellery. What the 1981 riots were about in Birmingham was about a breakdown in the relationship between the police and the community. In particular, the harder to reach members of the community, your blacks and Asians, because the police didn't reflect the community, and it could be argued it still does not now. And so it was a feeling of, we are not represented, we are being criminalised, and we're being discriminated, and we're being treated unfairly. So the only way that we can fight back is by attacking premises and bringing it to the attention of authorities. Not that I agree with that type of behaviour, but when you are desperate, then you do desperate things. How do we deal with organised crime gangs? How do we deal with them? Well, we raid, we get a warrant, and we deal with the after effects. That isn't successful. It does have a limited degree of success, but it's only temporary, because you could shut down a organised crime group's operations in one area, and it would pop up in another area, or that organised crime group would be replaced by another gang, another group. In order to deal with any crime, you have to look at the victim, the offenders, and the locations. Those three things make up any crime. You take away one of those ingredients, and then the offence will fall down. It won't happen again. It's called the triangle of crime, or the crime triangle. And so that's looking at its most simplistic approach.
Reflecting Birmingham's push for change, there are numerous charities and organisations that work in and around the city to help support people who've been affected by OCGs. Local charity Kick It work really hard in supporting these marginalised groups. They guide, mentor and support people, all so they can contribute positively to their community. Kick It run a grassroots gang prevention programme, working with specially trained mentors and ex-gang members to engage young people involved in violent youth crime or antisocial behaviour, and hopefully get them to leave. If you or anyone you know has been affected by gang culture, you can get in contact with Kick It by calling 0121 448 3883 or email them at info@kickitproject.org for more information. The fight that these charities and people do is working phenomenally well and has helped make Birmingham a safer place, protecting the people, the history and positively adding to the heritage of the second city.